Are your people working hard but not reaching their full potential? The problem is not effort, it is development. At the Modern Observer Group, we transform workforce development into real performance. Our human-centered achievement programs help your team think better, communicate stronger, and execute at a higher level. That means higher employee engagement, stronger leadership, and measurable results across your organization. If you want a workforce that performs, leads, and delivers, it is time to invest in your people. Visit modernobserver.com and discover how the Modern Observer Group helps you build a workforce that wins.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. A lot going on, especially in the political realm, and in particular, the Democratic Party. Of course, we have broached this subject several times, but for me, and I believe you as well, as we prepared for this podcast, it's becoming something that you can't avoid, and that is the rush to be not only left of center, but essentially communist. You have AOC, which, yeah, she is a clown, 100%, but it is a little scary when she says, I'm not here to broach around and she got that from Bernie. She basically said, I'm not here to just trim around the edges. I'm looking to change America forever. Obviously, she's retarded, so that's never going to happen. But it is a little scary, and it is very scary that Bill Maher, Fetterman was on Bill Maher, I think last week, and they were talking, and Fetterman agreed that it used to be, and Fetterman actually brought it up, that, 10 years ago, the thought of mentioning I'm a communist, even as a Democrat, would be something unheard of, and it would be chastised within the party. That is no longer the case, Dr. Lopkin, correct?
No, it isn't. The far left has found their voice, but they're now starting to realize that there's more opposition out there than they ever imagined. And you're starting to see it even within the Democratic Party. Fetterman obviously stood up against it. There have been a couple of others. You're seeing a lot of folks leaving the Democratic Party, and they're all using the same line that we've quoted over and over again. I didn't leave the Democratic Party left me.
Yes, I would agree. And you look at also what's going on with things that we didn't talk about in the preparation. The mayor of Seattle, people, put about leaving. People are leaving Seattle, once a thriving city based on aerospace. The aerospace, people are leaving that like there's no tomorrow. And as you mentioned, when we were prepping for the podcast, we talked about Texas not only wooing, but looks like they could be very much successful wooing Wall Street away from New York and into places like Dallas. Your thoughts if that happens? The effect on New York and the effect on the Democratic Party, my friend.
Yeah, New York is in a lot of trouble now. I mean, it's been in trouble for years. It's been escalated under Mondani. You're seeing the financial sector leave. Hedge funds have moved their offices out of New York. Planned expansions are now being canceled in New York because of Mondani. You're seeing more financial industry move to Miami, to Dallas. NASDAQ already has operations in Texas. I'm not sure what city. But you're seeing more and more people leaving. And figure just came out a little while ago. Since 2020, New York State lost $16 billion in annual revenue because businesses are leaving. Well, guess what? You cannot run a city the size of New York when your tax base is leaving. Mondani got so much blowback over his proposed property tax hike that they just submitted the budget and they left the property tax hike out because they were afraid of all the people leaving. Landlords were planning on just taking off. We saw it in New York in the 70s. It doesn't go well.
No, it does not. Now, the other aspect, yes, it's going to destroy or severely damage New York City. But what does it do in terms of the reflection on the socialist slash, what's that? Social, that's BS. The communist wing of the Democratic Party led by the genius AOC and the self-heading Jew from Vermont. What is it going to do to the party?
Well, we're already seeing what it's doing to the party. We saw it when California started instituting exorbitant minimum wages for restaurants and fast food. You saw jobs leave. You saw companies leave. Their high taxes. Again, they're leaving Seattle and Washington. They're leaving the entire West Coast because California, Oregon, and Washington basically went socialist, and now they're feeling the burn. The squad in particular thinks social media is representative of the country.
Excellent point.
It's not. They listen to their own little echo chambers going, oh, see, we know so much people love us. It's like, no, when you move past the Hudson River, past the Colorado Rockies, that center part of the country doesn't want anything to do with socialism, with the possible exception of Chicago and some other parts of Illinois.
But interjecting something really quick, it's a sports team, but it's also, I think it will destroy Pritzker's chance of any kind of presidential run. Not that he really has any, but there's odds are that the Bears are going to move out of Chicago.
The Bears are looking to move out of Chicago. The Oakland A's and the Oakland Raiders have already started their move to Las Vegas. So you're seeing not just big business leave. You're seeing people leave. You're seeing sports teams leave. We just saw in Connecticut the sale of the Connecticut Sun. They're leaving Connecticut. Everything.
Lopkin's leaving Connecticut.
Lopkin is leaving Connecticut. Yes.
There you go.
We have seen these deep blue states just hemorrhaging people, money, businesses. The Democrats cannot handle this. And, we saw earlier in the week, we saw crime stats come out. Violent crime has been dropping all down 2025. It's dropped further in 2026. And you saw the left go, well, this shows what a lie Trump is saying about blue cities being disaster areas. No, if you take a look at the data and you take a look at what's actually gone on, why is crime going down? Because the FBI and ICE under the Trump administration has been eviscerating Tren de Aragua, the other gangs. They are taking out the cartels. You're seeing people moving to these red states saying it's safer, it's more prosperous. Take a look at the GDP of each state. You will see the deep blue states are failing, the red states are thriving.
And in the political arena, it also has huge implications for electoral college. There's some editorials I read that 2028 could be, I know it's a figure of speech, so to speak, or a theory, but 2028 could be electorally, that is, the last chance for the Dems. And to put another little bow on that the blue wall might actually be irrelevant.
Well, I think we saw the blue wall pretty much become irrelevant in 2024 when Trump swept it. But you're seeing, the Democrats have relied for years on gerrymandering.
Yes.
New England is the perfect example. New England is 40% Republican, and yet there's not one congressperson from all of New England. Why? Because it was completely gerrymandered. California gerrymandered their election districts to keep Republicans out. New York City did the same thing. The shapes of some of these districts are absolutely amazing. The lengths they went to keep Democrats in power. Well, now the worm has turned. Republicans have said, you know what? We can't stand to the sidelines anymore and let them do this. So now you've got the redistricting going on the Republican side. But unlike the Democrats, the states that are redistricting towards the red actually had population gains.
There you go. It would be supported by the court if challenged. Of course,
and it has been. The Supreme Court so far has upheld Texas, has upheld Tennessee, has upheld Alabama.
Louisiana as well.
Louisiana it upheld. Meanwhile, the Democrats in Virginia decided to cut corners when they did their redistricting, and it didn't even have to go to the Supreme Court. Their own courts shot it down.
But I thought the Democrats are the ones from the Ivy League that would have, you thought maybe a high school student would look at the rules before you proceed. Just throwing it out there.
Well, we've said this for years at this point. The whole Democratic mantra is rules for thee, not for me.
You're correct.
They don't feel that these things apply to them. They can do what they want. And now they're getting the blowback. And it's because they did not understand why Trump won. And I have heard Democrats talking about this. I've heard Republicans talking about this. When Trump campaigned in 2024, he talked about what mattered to the voters. And then when he took office, executive orders to do what he talked about. He knew a lot of these executive orders wouldn't survive court cases, but it allowed him to say, look, you elected me to do these things. I did them. Now take a look at how they're trying to oppose it.
And so you made a good point about the echo chamber. And I think, both parties have that, liberal and conservatives have that. But I think it's a lot more pervasive on the liberal side. I think when you're going to the Chardonnay parties with sushi and the like, that you do become insulated to reality. Because you talk to liberals, they think what they think Americans think, and they don't.
Yeah, most of America is not liberal. And the liberals, especially the squad, the far left Democrats, the so-called democratic socialists, and let's just be clear about that title. Democratic Socialist is a political party. Communist is an economic system.
Yes.
What the Democratic Socialists are spouting is communism. There's no doubt about that. But on the liberal side, up until recently, it's been harder to escape that echo chamber because you had ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, all in that echo chamber. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, all of the papers of record slanted essentially to the point where they were nothing more than Democratic sounding boards.
And interesting, just real quick, it's really interesting when you see their, which you are 100% correct, that their talking points, it's almost like at least try to fake it. Like they'd all say, illegal, something, whatever the phrase is, all of them said it. It's kind of obvious, duh.
Right. I think it was Dana Perino on Fox that said it. It was like the Democratic Party sent up a bat signal over what was that day's message, and all of the mainstream media parroted it.
100% correct. So speaking of, how the Democratic Party will shake out, I think it's going to be either they'll have a reformation or they will be in the wilderness like the Republican Party was for almost 50 years after FDR. But you look at some events that are happening, and I think if these get traction, and it's not just a fantasy or pipe dream, it could very well happen. You look at the race for the LA mayorship, right? And it was Karen Bass, a product, by the way, which they often are, of our great former President Obama, basically being eviscerated by Spencer Pratt in the debates. And now it's a horse race. And not only that, but it has all the earmarks of Trump a la 2016 when the polls had him down by, I don't know, 20 something points and he actually won. Your thoughts on that? And Steve Hilton is leading in the gubernatorial race. If that happens, as well as the midterms, and we look at races like Massachusetts, basically as liberal as you can possibly get. We have Ed Markey. He's a communist, whatever, tool. He was the co-author of the Green News scam. He was 25 points ahead of his opponent, Republican, a gentleman whose last name is Moulton. And now it's a toss-up. 37 Markey, 32 Moulton. If that happens, that is a shot across all these events. And it's not, of course, maybe all of them aren't going to come to fruition. But if the midterms don't go the Democrats' way, key races like Markey, I think the Democrats had it kind of wrapped up against Susan Collins in Maine. Now you have the Nazi who has a tattoo. And it's really kind of bizarre and troubling that you have people like Elizabeth Warren. I'm not so sure she's not a little anti-Semitic, but that's for another show, saying the what's his name in Maine, the Nazi tattoos and all these tweets and messaging that he said, he's my kind of guy. Your thoughts?
I don't think Warren actually knows who's running in Maine. I think Warren actually just looks at the D at the end and goes, oh, it's the Democrat. That's it. They can do no wrong. I don't think she has any idea who this person is, what he said, what he spouted. She's just so tied to her Trump derangement syndrome that anybody who's a Republican is the devil.
I think her shtick's getting a little old.
Well, so is she.
What's that?
Well, so is she.
Exactly. But yeah, her relevancy is like pretty much gone, correct? I think she's doing this to remain relevant, but guess what? The train's left the station, correct?
Yeah, she's irrelevant. I mean, Bernie has managed to barely hang on to relevancy, but the midterms could change that. Bill Maher recently said, 2 months ago, that there was no way the Democrats were going to lose the midterm. Now there's a way, and it's not a little way. There is a very strong possibility at this point that the Republicans will hang on to both the House and the Senate. Now,
real quick, and to put that in perspective, if we said this 3 months ago, we'd be laughed off the air.
3 months ago, I wouldn't have said it because I didn't believe it was possible.
You go, yes.
Historically, it doesn't happen in the midterms. Generally, it flips, especially when you've got a president as polarizing as Trump. Take a look at what happened in the midterm elections of Barack Obama's first term. It was a complete reprisal against the Democrats. That was what I expected to happen this year against the Republicans. Now, not only is it possible for them to hang on to their slim majorities, because of the redistricting, they actually have a strong possibility of picking up seats.
If that happens, what is the effect? On the Democratic Party.
If that happens, the Democratic Party are going to have a come to Jesus moment. They are going to have to accept that they have not been the party of the people. They have not been representative of the country, which quite frankly, they showcased themselves when Trump asked people at the State of the Union to stand up to that if they support American citizens, and the Democrats refused to stand. People saw that. People took that to heart. They need to get out of that echo chamber, which again is getting easier, and start listening to people.
I'm not sure they're capable of that. I mean that honestly. I think you have strong ideologues that it could happen, but I think it's up in the air.
I think you've got three groups of Democrats right now. You've got the senior set: Schumer, Pelosi, Warren. These folks aren't capable of changing. They'll go whichever way the wind blows, because
Correct.
all they care about is they want to keep their seat.
No question.
You've got the young far left Democrats.
Communists, yes.
They're not changing their tune. They've been brainwashed through the education system to believe socialism is a brilliant system, and the only reason it hasn't worked is because they haven't had their shot to make it work.
And they are the intelligentsia that can make it happen.
Yes,
they've been told that. They're not.
That's what they believe.
There you go.
When the leader of your movement is a bartender that couldn't calculate a bar tab,
wait a second, Dr. Lopkin. You know, we talked about higher education, and I've seen some interviews, discussions with AOC, and her huge knowledge about the economy. I really have to say, Boston University, she got a degree in economics. Federal agencies, regulatory, should look at maybe pulling that credential.
In interviews, AOC has herself said she is not an economic expert.
There you go.
That was her degree. That was what she studied.
Exactly. And she also said billionaires, they didn't really make the money. They used it in just total communist ideology by exploiting people. Yeah, okay. No, there's a lot of millionaires that were brilliant. There you go.
Yeah, folks.
No one gives you $1 million for yucks.
No, I beg of all of our listeners, go to Netflix, go to Hulu. There is a series that originally aired, I believe, on the History Channel. It is the blank that built America. It's the men that built America.
That's right.
The cars that built America. The tech that built America. You will note that none of this was done by the government.
Never. Government Reagan said that, if you're going to have something screw up, the government can make it happen. There you go. For instance, I had to mail some information concerning my retirement. So I sent it certified mail in the town of Litchfield. And so I checked on the status, and she goes, the woman who answered the phone, very nice lady, said, "Oh, it's in Hartford now." So what is the point? I mailed it in Litchfield, and it had to go to Torrington, which is about 5 miles away. I just shook my head. I thought I was doing myself a favor mailing it in Litchfield. 5 miles. No, it goes from Litchfield to Hartford, back to Torrington. Only our government can do something like that, correct?
Well, in fairness to the U.S. Postal Service, that's not just government, because FedEx actually has the same model. I will never forget when I worked in New York, I had to FedEx something from 5th Avenue and 44th Street to 3rd Avenue and 37th Street. And to get there, it had to go through New Jersey.
Okay, there you go. I stand correct. Now, you talked about the Democratic. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. We have Spencer Pratt, don't know if he's Jewish or not, said it's far too cute, the anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party. And then, very interesting enough, you have a Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice named David Welch, and it's very interesting what he says. Longtime Democrat. In the quarter century that has passed since the Democratic Party has changed. Nazi tattoos, jihadist chants, intimidation, and attacks on synagogues. Blah blah blah. He has now left the Democratic Party. That's kind of sums it up, doesn't it? Of course, Blumenthal would never leave.
It really does. But you also have to remember that this is not exactly new. Remember, when Josh Shapiro was being interviewed by Kamala Harris as a potential VP candidate, she actually asked him, "Are you an agent for Israel?"
That's not racist at all, is it?
No, not at all.
Like it's like having an African-American judicial nominee. Are you a member, or your family a member of the Black Panthers?
All right. It has become widespread within the Democratic Party, within the far left, and it's not just here in the US. The German government actually released a report, I believe I mentioned this briefly last week, that anti-Semitism is skyrocketing in Europe, and it's because of the far left and the Islamists. You're seeing it all over Europe. You're seeing it all over the US. It is dangerous. And unfortunately, the Democrats have decided they want the moron Palestinian protesters to vote for them more than they want to protect Jews. And
I think there is a point here, because it's a numbers game, and it's all about power for the Dems. We don't have to go on, ad nauseum about that, but they look at the numbers, they look at where these people are, like key states like Michigan, and they basically threw the once embraced Jewish constituency of the Democratic Party overboard for the Islamists. They don't give a shit.
Well, I don't even think yes, it's about the numbers, but I don't think it's about the numbers that you're referring to. I think it's about the dollar signs.
Okay.
Because we've had a guest right on this show who explained how these protesters are being paid, how this whole thing is being manufactured. They don't want to lose Soros money. They don't want to lose that far left wacko money. And I think that's really the numbers that they're looking at.
That's why you're the doctor. I would agree with that. And it's really funny when you look at the funding of these protests, so-called protests, organic protests. Yeah, I have a bridge to say. How do they all have the same signs? One's in Michigan, the other one's in Canada. And they just magically, it happens all the time. Yeah.
They've got the same signs, the same logos, the same color schemes. All of a sudden, these things just quote unquote pop up. It's like, no, this stuff is all sitting in a warehouse waiting for the opportunity to be used.
Yes, sir. So that, a lot of good discussion. I think we have concluded our agenda for the day. Another great show, Dr. Lopkin. That's why you are the doctor. And our listeners can be a part of the show, correct?
Yes, we love to hear from our listeners. Go to xvadio.com/connect. Send us a message. Let us know what you think. You can also message us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Radio at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.